And I'll jump in. Okay, so our topic today is I titled it Little Hands, Big Skills Supporting Fine Motor Activities. And so I know you're familiar with our project, but if you don't know, you're our faces to our team. We have four specialists and coaches. Maureen, Krista, and Christina are all speech language pathologists, and I'm Mariah. I'm an early childhood special educator. And so we're here to support you guys as you work with children with delays and disabilities. And then we also have on our team Mar and Jackie, and they work on the back end, running our loan library, setting up communications, and technical support. I wanted to highlight like all of your memories are pretty much linked to like creativity, joy, independence, and it's the power of fine motor development. It just allows you access to so many amazing things. Okay, so what are fine motor skills? They're coordination of small muscles in hands and in hands and fingers for precise movements. So examples of fine motor skills would be holding a crayon or pencil, buttoning a shirt, using scissors or utensils. Why it matters, these are just a few. They support independence, school readiness, and cognitive development. And I also think about all the things you guys just mentioned, like baking and pushing flour carton. I mean, just all of these little things, exploring the newspaper in a sensory way. But those are all additional benefits of developing fine motor skills. I included this image of these x-rays of hands because I took a training on fine motor development for early childhood ed teachers years ago, and they showed us this x-ray, and it was really a powerful image for me to look at the development of a toddler or preschooler's hand compared to an older school-age child's hand. um, and it explained, it just shifted my expectations for children and what we should be doing with them based on their development in early years. So you can like look at the difference between a typical toddler, preschool, and school-age children. Hands are still developing in early childhood and need support to develop before writing should be expected of them. So when I was shown this picture of x-rays, they said, take your worksheets and throw them out the window because asking preschoolers to fill in blank spaces or write in worksheets is way past what their little hands are meant to do in early stages of development. So, it shocked most of us preschool teachers, but we learned way more creative ways to work on developing fine motor skills that are a lot more fun too. So, how do we support learning and developing these writing skills? You start with play. Less worksheets, more fun. You can use Play-Doh, coloring, cutting, sensory play, dress up, science experiments, beading, puzzles. All of these things help with hand development. And then when they're physically ready to write, they will. Like 2 to 4 year old expectations should be focused on pre-writing skills, like holding utensils, making marks on a page, or like free writing, kind of like scribbling. That will get them familiar with the motions of writing. How they're holding the utensil doesn't matter yet and should not be the focus until they are older. Around that like 5 to 6 age is when you really want to see that mature writing grasp that you can see in that bubble on the bottom right corner of the pencil grasp page. Okay, so that was a little bit about, how hands change over time. Expectations for infants. This is, you guys, a very abridged version of some fine motor milestones, and I'll show you where to find way more in depth for like month by month expectations of fine motor development for children in a later slide. But this one we have just as in general, infants should learn to swipe at dangling objects, bring hands to mouth, develop a pincer grasp, and start pointing and poking. And a pincer grasp is this, where you are picking up items with a pointer and a thumb. So you'll see babies work on developing this if you have them like sitting in a high chair and they're picking up Cheerios or small food items. That's typically how that develops. Toddlers, expectations for toddlers would be to stack 2 to 3 blocks, scribble with crayons, feed themselves, turn book pages, and use a spoon. And this picture is a really great example. This little one in this picture, she's using a spoon, but not with a mature grasp yet, because she's still developing the skills of using utensils. So as her hands grow and develop coordination, her grasp will mature as well. But what she's doing is developmentally appropriate for her age. And then preschool, the expectations are to copy simple shapes, use a fork, dress with help, cut along a line. And preschool is a good time to introduce early writing skills like drawing lines and tracing. And in those prior ages and prior development, they're exploring. But in preschool is when these concepts are introduced with structure. For discussion, have you ever been surprised by a child's fine motor ability, either advanced or delayed? And how did you adjust your expectations based on age and individual development?
I think all kids are individual anyway. So when you've been in the classroom enough, you definitely see a broad spectrum of every child come through.
I was thinking about when I wrote this question, I was working with a little one with who had autism, and she really struggled with fine motor skills. And I was trying to get her to just draw vertical lines, like top page to a bottom of the page, and trace them. And she had actually mentioned her name started with an H, and she copied a line for me. And then and the second line, and she looked at it and she said, "Uh-oh, the H is broken." And she actually was able to draw a horizontal line. It was really messy, but she did it because she connected. She was like, "Oh, it's an H." And it was interesting to see like her intellectual development, like she understood what an H was, even though she couldn't form it, or I didn't think that she could form it. But when she looked at these lines, she was like, "Your H is broken. I'm gonna fix it." And she did it, which was really amazing. I don't know, it blew me away. So it was fun to give her that opportunity to show me what she knew, when I didn't expect that she knew it too. That was, but that was a fine motor story. Any other fine motor stories?
I think the biggest example I can think of is the first time I sat down at a table in a preschool classroom to do an art activity with a group of toddlers, because before that I'd done a lot of in-home therapies one-on-one and could make quick and easy adjustments. But I had a group of preschoolers and I got out the bin of scissors and they all looked the same and I put them on the table and then it just became chaos. I don't know what happened. Some of the kids could do it and were like cutting out along lines, and some kids didn't even know how to pick them up. And it was just kind of all over the place. So I was like, wow, I feel really stuck right now. But knowing that the next time I could get some different kinds of scissors, so that different kids could have different ways to do the cutting and different things to cut. And it was just a real wake up call of like, whenever you go into a preschool classroom, if you try to do the same activity with the same materials for all the kids, it's just probably not going to go very well. So that was a real wake up call for me early in my career.
Like one of you guys mentioned earlier, every kid develops at their own rate. And you're right. So when you try to get a group of preschoolers to do something that, yeah, they can be all over the map. Some really advanced, some well behind where you would have expected. But Krista gave us a great segue because there are tons of tools to support different developmental or different places where kids are developmentally. So, building fine motor skills, playing with purpose. So, great ways to work on building that like hand and motor strength and control and coordination and establishing that brain body connection to really help kids cue in and use their hands intentionally. Things like Play-Doh rolling and shaping, beading and lacing cards, cutting and gluing crafts, finger painting and sponge stamping, using tweezers or clothespins in games. And as a tip, incorporate these into daily routines and free play. So I really loved to try to help kids learn to zip their jackets and work on dressing skills in the classroom. And some kids needed things like like zipper pulls or me to start zipping their jacket and they could finish it. Or I love, I put this sensory bin in the image here because I love to add scoops and spoons, measuring cups, things like that to sensory bins so they can practice those fine motor skills while they're getting extra sensory input. And it's giving them immediate feedback too of like, oh, I held the spoon level and it kept the liquid on it, or I tipped my cup and it dumped. So they're working on like developing that muscle control and motor control the whole time, even though they don't know they're working, they're exercising their brain. Also adding scissors and cutting tools like a plastic knife to Play-Doh. I love to add those things, like things you would see in a kitchen. And anyway, so those are ways to work on building those skills. And then something Kristen mentioned earlier was like, what do you do when you have kids who can't complete the task? They're not there, developmentally to be able to do it. So there are tons of ways to adapt for fine motor challenges for kids who really aren't able to do the skills yet, but you want to help them participate. You can use adaptive tools like pencil grips, loop scissors, zipper pulls, or bigger items. And we have some images of some on this screen that you can actually check out and borrow from our library for free. But these adaptive scissors, and then in the middle picture is the easy grip or easy hold handle set. And these you can loop onto things like markers or forks to give them a handle so you can put their little hands through them. And it makes it a lot easier to hand hold utensils or tools without having grip strength. You can use those. This bottom image is a chunky crayon, which you guys have probably seen and or made. But I loved making these as a preschool teacher. I liked to take our broken crayons and melt them down in either Jello molds or novelty ice cube trays or popsicle molds. So you can have a variety of shapes of crayons that are a little bit easier to grip for different kids. And you might get more writing buy-in if there's something fun like a heart or a superhero or whatever they're interested in. So you can see which shapes work the best for the kids you serve. I also mentioned breaking down tasks into smaller parts or manageable steps. So an example of this would be like if your task for kids is to decorate a paper plate, so you're making a mask, maybe you just put out the stickers and the plate first, or glue and glitter to simplify and add structure. So you're making it easier to understand, to prevent overwhelm or fatigue, rather than like putting out all of the materials first in front of the kids. Or you could have a child with a delay work in pairs so that they could put on the stickers on the plate, and a peer could do the higher level skill of like cutting and gluing if they're really not there yet. And then last, this is one, it's easy to miss, but make sure their body position is stable and well supported. So that means like making sure their feet can reach the floor, or if they don't have a chair, if their chair is too tall to reach the floor, giving them a step stool so their feet are securely supported. And that their hands can reach the table from a comfortable seated position, that they're not tipping over or sliding out of their seat, because it's really hard to do those more like taxing tasks like coordinating fine motor skills if you're fatiguing or sliding out of your chair. So that will help give them a boost to focus. And then also, yeah, celebrate progress, not perfection. I have to remind myself when I work with littles and I have a big project in mind, like making a Mother's Day card or something where I want something beautiful to give to parents, I have to remind myself that the end result of the art project isn't the actual goal. It's developing the fine motor skills. So, like, it doesn't have to look pretty or perfect, but if they're working on writing or coloring or cutting and doing their best, that is a-okay. Oh, and I was thinking of actually, I want to ask you guys first. So, for discussion, what tips or tricks have you discovered while supporting children with fine motor delays? Or have you worked with kids with fine motor delays?
Something I learned was about crayons. because we often did not have time or money to make our own different shapes. But I did find that I was surprised to find, and OT told me this, that if you break the crayons to make them smaller, it actually forces the children to hold them with a little bit better hand posture, because they don't have the whole bar to grip onto with their hand like this. So they kind of have to grab it with their fingers instead of with their whole hand. So in the end, I ended up with more broken crayons than not, but worked out well for the kids getting more practice on their using their fingers.
That's a great tip, Krista. I love that one.
I love that tip, unless you're giving your rating, because then they'll nail you for rating. No, but I love it because they grab them much better when they're broken because they're smaller.
Yeah,
I work.
I do
Oh,
find that fascinating because my instinct is always to go bigger so that things fit in their hands easier. But sometimes smaller is better. I
Yeah,
found that interesting.
yeah.
mhm.
In one of your classes that I had, the launder basket worked really good with the pool noodles.
Oh, for stabilizing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yes.
gave that tip to a parent that was having a real struggle at home,
Mhm.
and she loved it because it was inexpensive, and now their child can do everything with them.
Oh, that's so cool. I'm so glad you shared that with a parent. That's really
Mhm.
neat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it worked out really good for them.
Sometimes it's the simplest things too. They're like, yeah, there are so many cool tips and tricks. I was just thinking about scissor skills. Man, like most preschoolers do not come into school knowing how to use scissors, right? And a lot of kindergartners don't. But I remember I actually grabbed a pair to model for you guys. Something that I used to see in preschool all the time was they would cut like this, um, and put their thumb on the bottom, which makes it way harder to have like the dexterity and control you need. And so I came up with you guys just like a silly little song that I would sing with them to try to teach them to keep their thumb on the top. And I'll sing it for you guys. And you can, if you have a better one, please share it with me because I just made this up on the fly when I was teaching. But I told them, I said, put your thumb on the top and open and close, open and close, open and close. Put your thumb on the top and open and close. Cut, 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 cut. And we would sing it to prompt them to keep that thumb on the top. But it helped. I mean, some of them would sing it to themselves when they would cut because you would see them with their papers and their thumb, and it was so uncoordinated and so difficult to cut and control their scissors. I don't know. Y'all can copyright that if you want.
I used to use a washable marker and make little alligator eyes on their thumb, and their thumb always had to be on top so the eyes could see where they were going.
That's brilliant. I'm going to use that.
So
I
they could
love
go chomp,
that.
chomp, chomp with their alligator.
That's so cute. I love those tips, you guys. So, key takeaways: fine motor skills are foundational for independence and learning, and development varies, which you all know well. So, observe and support each child's pace. Focus on more play based activities, less worksheets. And also, there are tons of tools and adaptations for children struggling with fine motor delays and disabilities. Seek tools, resources, and support. And I will show you some of the resources we have. And feel free to share with colleagues and parents, whoever. But we have, like you mentioned, taking our course already, the Adapting for Disability Fine Motor course through PDIS is great for teaching like basic development. Um, and then I also included CDC's developmental milestones, and that is all developmental milestones, not just fine motor. So if you have a kid you're working with and you're concerned, or a kid who's advanced and you want to push them and see what's next, developmental milestones are awesome resources to check out. And then two of my all-time favorite fine motor websites are the Inspired Treehouse and the OT Toolbox. The Inspired Treehouse has a really cool fine motor developmental checklist that's just fine motor, and I'll tell you things to work on in infancy through toddlerhood. But they also have tons of cool sensory activities. But anyway, both of those websites are two of my favorites, and I reference them all the time. And then we have Lots of tools for different stages of fine motor development. One like tools and adaptive toys. Let's see, I'll show you how to find these as well, but we have like an art backpack in our library that has adaptive scissors and things with different size grips. We have the Dyson mat, this blue mat up here in the corner is a kind of a sticky surface. So if you have kids who knock things down or spill or have a hard time keeping track of all the little parts and pieces that they're working with, it's sticky and it can hold their pieces in place so that it's easier to control their whatever they're working with. Also, the Easy Peasy Happy Mat. You see this with feeding a lot for kids who are learning how to pick up their food, or it's a really cool tool for feeding. But I also love it for art projects. Like if you're having kids string beads, you can put the beads on the mat so they don't roll away. Or if you're doing like, I've had kids make bracelets out of like pipe cleaners and pony beads. This is an awesome tool for kids who have a hard time controlling all the little pieces or they drop things a lot. The Easy Peasy Mat's one of my favorites. The Scooper Bowl, also if you work with infants who are learning to self-feed, it has a little lip over the edge. So if they're learning to use a spoon, it kind of helps get that food on the spoon as they scoop. And then we have puzzles with a variety of knob sizes. But I'm going to pull this up to show you. We have so many more. So I'll just show you where to find them all and you can check them out for free and use them with your kids.
I just want to mention too about the scooper bowl that is demonstrated a lot with feeding, but just like the Easy Peasy mat, it's also really great for art if you are using a liquid in art like water or paint. It's just a little bit more supportive for kids who have trouble getting that stuff.
Yeah, I love that. Yes, it has a suction cup on the bottom, which is so helpful. Okay, so this is our sidelibrary.com. Ladies, I don't know if you've used it before or not, but if you've taken our classes, you should have login access here. And if you want to check out any of the items we talked about or more, you can find them here on the home page under this lists button. And then you can scroll down. We have lists for all kinds of different things, but you can scroll down and click supports for fine motor delays. And then we have, I mean, different types of puzzles that have different actions and sounds, color changing touch boards, that Dyson mat I mentioned, adaptive scissors. The fine motor kit has a lot of different toys to work on developing fine motor skills. We have the Ladybug matching game is a fun one for preschoolers. We have Magnetiles, which you might have in your program already, but they're a really fun tool for kids who have a hard time like stacking if they fall or break, but they're magnetic, so they stick together a little bit better. Yeah, different puzzles, piano, pop balls. These are sensory balls or sensory spirals, things you can put in your sensory table to have play with. Um, yeah, there's a ton of cool tools in there. So check those out. But anyway, yeah, check those out if you need some tools or ideas on things to do with kids or just to change up your materials. So if you don't have access to the library yet, this is the way you get it by completing the Introduction to Universal Design course, which will allow you, will get you library access and limited access to check things out. But if you complete that course plus one more, one of the introduction or adapting for disability courses, you'll have full access to check anything out from the library. And as a bonus, you get CE credits for any of those classes you take, or continuing ed credits. Let's see. And there are many options. So if you want to learn more about fine motor, which is our topic for today, there's a course on fine motor, but also gross motor, hearing and vision, communication and early literacy, behavior and cognition. So there's a lot to check out. And yeah, let's see. Oh, and as a bonus, we're doing a promo right now that if you check out anything from our loan library, we will give you a deck of animal action cards to keep. It's a collection of 25 cards. They all have a different sensory activity in them, which will help get kids more focused or take a quick intentional break when they need to. Or if you have a cold or super rainy day and are stuck inside, this is a great indoor recess activity too. The options are endless. So if you want to see a video on how to use those, bit.ly/pushCIDE, and you can see a demo of how to use those cards, and you get them to keep for your program. Also, we have a Google folder for you, and we send out the link in our follow-up email. But this Google folder has all of like a PDF of every resource we've sent out on our email list. We also have a lot of resources in Spanish, or if we mention specific tools like a communication board or different things that we reference during office hours, we put those in that Google folder so you have access to them whenever you need them. And feel free to copy and share and anyway, share with colleagues. Okay. Our website, you can find it at bit.ly/adapt to impact. Our email is adaptcide@ucdenver.edu. And our phone number is 303-315-1287. And feel free to use this as resources at any time. I mean, if you have a kid in your program that you need ideas for or tools for, hit us up and we're happy to give you direction. Or if you have something in mind but can't find it, touch base with us. We keep an ongoing wish list for tools. So if we ever have extra funding and it's something you need that's not in our library, we can add it to the list. But anyway, we'd love to hear from you. Or if you have questions as well, and or something you want us to address in office hours, send us an email and we'd be happy to address it. And then just as a little housekeeping, I wanted to mention we're not doing office hours in December. So next month, no office hours because of holidays, but we will be back in January, the last Wednesday of the month, which is January 28th. And we're going to be talking about vision development and using high contrast and just different ways to accommodate for kids who have vision impairments. Let's see. Did I miss anything? If you guys have any questions or comments, jump in. I'd love to hear.